Hi everyone, welcome to the 3 Points Digital discussion series. Today we're going to talk about platforms architecture, and with me here I have Andrew and Phil, my fellow partners. Andrew, we are hearing a lot about digital strategies, transformation, and consistently hearing that a platform is needed for many things. What's your experience been on it?
I could even argue, Joya, that a business without a platform is not fit for the digital era. So what is your platform or set of platforms? I think, like you, Joya, we had a lot of experience with enterprise architecture. People will know what that means. There was a vast array of frameworks like TOGAF and FIAF and so on. The big religion, there were hundreds of people involved in that discipline. I think the shift, as we've shifted to born in the cloud businesses, or businesses that have really been, they were conceived as a way of transacting on a platform, people are start to challenge, well, how do I reduce costs? How do I just have that as a cloud-based arrangement? So the relationship between a platform's architecture, I think, and then the platforms-based business model or a business model change, we're right there now for every business to be conscious of that.
And I think part of what we're seeing is that it doesn't mean enterprise architecture is bad. We know some organizations do that quite badly because it's more about process and governance rather than helping businesses. And that's kind of where the rub points are, isn't it? Because a platform comes with everything and it's expecting to be plugged in, whereas the enterprise on the other side is not really ready for that plug-in to take place. So from an organization point of view, Phil, what do you think leaders or businesses should be thinking about in terms of really adopting this? What are some of the key characteristics?
Well, I think if I think about it from challenges, I think some organisations like to keep everything in-house. I think of trust. I think of partnerships. I think of the relationships that you need in the digital world, and to see that you don't actually have to do every capability in your, provide every capability to deliver that service. In fact, I can partner with people to make that happen.
So the IT shop could be halved, as we've seen with our clients who've shifted to a set of platforms.
And I think we're suffering a little bit from the outsourcing, insourcing debates and the layoffs and those sorts of things from perhaps a leadership or an organisational perspective, but how we think differently about the total set of capabilities that we need to deliver on a new service or product in the digital era. I think it gives us that ability to do that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm ceding control, but it comes back to also then your governance around that and the relationship between your partner and your team that are delivering those services.
The kind of buy versus build versus borrow agenda, doesn't it? Because at the end of the day, you don't have to build everything. And when we look at the modernization, you talked earlier about, Andrew, the how can I move some of my existing legacy systems to cloud and how fast can that happen? And some of the applications that have a high risk profile or a security profile, a high security profile, how do I fix those? The flexibility needed, and most importantly,
that's the term, flexibility.
The direction that is needed becomes quite critical, isn't it?
Totally, and I think where it starts to become a major strategic driver is things like total cost of ownership and your general OPEX and CAPEX associated with starting a new business or a new market. When you look at some of the, albeit they've been around a bit now and they've now got hybrid models, but the Airbnb ICT team is in the 20s and 30s versus a major Australian bank might be in the hundreds. And so there's a fundamental difference in the total cost of ownership, headcount, licenses, proliferation of applications. And then, so I think that we're still in that transition mode. I think we're still moving, don't you? I mean, there's still organizations.
Well, and that's kind of where I think the discipline of an enterprise architecture with TOGAF and Zachman
which is a good governance
and others,
framework.
applying that to a platform's architecture is quite critical, because where we have seen some of these large kind of projects, digital projects, go off the rails is, they roll in the latest platform. It cannot be integrated into anything else, and the internal IT organization is not really ready to take that on, and all it does is it breaks everything else, right?
But I mean, without naming our wonderful clients, but there have been clients who don't even know how many business systems and applications they've got. It's a bit like me and my iPhone. How many Apple subscriptions I've got, I didn't know I was paying for. So there's the true cost of owning and sustaining. Yes, it's a SaaS model, and I'm paying for the month on consumption, but gee, it mounts up.
Well, and
that's the big surprise.
That's the big
for me.
surprise factor.
That's the big surprise in some of our clients, where you have multiple apps that do the same thing, and everybody's bought their own.
Yeah.
The thing I love about the platform's architecture approach that we take is that, and it sort of back to sort of my discipline around the org design space, but it's that seeing the capability as a total capability, and then saying, what are we doing in the people? What are we doing in the process? And what are we doing in the technology? Oh my gosh, we've got 7 of those things. Why are we paying for all of those subscriptions? And and we also have this core system as well.
As an exec, as a leader, with that sort of pathology of their organization, multiple apps, not sure how many, etc. What do you think is the first step they should take? I mean, what's the...
Well, I think, back to the point Phil made around what do you actually know what you have? Do you have application registers? Do you have data registers? So what is the baseline, right? Because cloud does not equal cheap.
No,
and that's been proven multiple times with some of the clients we worked with, where they've been surprised at the monthly cost and how much it builds up. I bought this and I was expecting it to cost $20,000 a month, but when I look at it over the last 6 months, it's actually costing me $100,000 a month. Yeah. And who's tracking that? Because so I think getting an understanding of what you have, building your to-be state. Yeah. Again, this is not rocket science. This is what we used to do from before. The building the to-be state is faster now because we have the ability to use best-of-breed platforms. Yeah. We have the ability to use best-of-breed functionality that can be plugged in very quickly, and then rolled out. So it helps us experiment and test the readiness of the organization much quicker as well.
I think Phil just mentioned it, but I think the secret sauce perhaps in our approach, having been a former SI systems integrator, is that we will link those systems and applications to a capability, and then that capability to implementation of a strategy, and there's therefore, or a customer experience. So there's a direct linkage to value. So we don't just have the problem of, you could use all 3 of those applications if you want.
I like that though.
Yeah. So and it sort of gives you the ability to look at that sort of integrated lens. Yeah. Whether it's for a product or a service, for a customer or for an employee, and then sort of just look at all the dependencies from top to bottom.
Yeah. If I was to be devil's advocate, then in relation to what you just said, you take best of breed, but we know even with some of the clients that we've worked with, there's overlap between those best of breed platforms. So what do you do with that overlap? And is that a cost that is just inherent in multiple platforms?
Well, but that's part of the rationalization discussion.
Don't turn those components on.
Correct. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to, and this is where the licensing model today and the flexibility that it gives you, is beneficial. And it's important that buyers in the organization are aware of that flexibility, because the whole point about platforms and software as a service models is I can buy one thing, I don't have to buy the whole thing, right? Yeah. So that's kind of really where we are. So I think if we take a step back and look at the benefits of platforms architecture, giving you that understanding of what do I have, what do I need to turn off sooner rather than later, what is the sequence, is my organization ready to accept a new platform, or is it going to double up in costs? And what kind of governance do I need to adopt to ensure that it can scale as we look at new features and functions to provide new products and services? Well, thank you for spending the time with us. More to come in this ongoing discussion series.